The wind screamed like a living thing over the jagged cliffs of Cinderel's Reach, clawing at the blackened rock and iron-wrought shelters huddled beneath the sky. The clouds above were bruised purple, swollen with ash and lightning, casting the land in a perpetual twilight. Here, on the edge of the known galaxy, the last wild humans endured. A hunting party was returning. 6 riders astride bellowing, horn-plated dusters, their mounts' taloned feet clanging against the steel-ribbed pass. At their head rode Warden Reg Talon, broad-shouldered and brutal-eyed, wrapped in layers of synth hide and bone-plated armor. Strapped to the back of his duster's saddle was a body, bound, slumped, and breathing. The sentries spotted them first, raising signal flares from the watchspire. Rusted floodlights buzzed to life as the iron gates of Four Hold opened with a groan, revealing a city carved into the cliffs themselves. Blacksmiths paused mid-strike, militia leaned on their rifles, and children with soot-streaked faces ran to get a better look. The hunters passed through the gates like warriors returning from a myth, carrying with them not meat or salvage, but a prisoner unlike any they had ever seen. They dragged him into the central square and threw him to the ground. The gathered crowd recoiled. He was tall and sinewy, with silver-gray skin and eyes like backlit amber. Thin tendrils of flesh pulsed gently from his neck and wrists, twitching like antennae. He bled a silvery blue from a split lip, and his hands, 6-fingered, delicate, almost beautiful, remained bound. A Talari, the first they'd seen in decades. Reg stepped forward, his voice like gravel and thunder. He walked into the fire zone west of Iron Gulch. No armor, no escort, didn't even flinch when the dusters circled him. Said he wanted to speak with me. The crowd erupted into angry murmurs. One old woman spat at the ground. A young boy stared wide-eyed, fingers curling around a knife handle on his belt. Warden Talon raised a hand, and silence rippled across the square. He crouched down, looking the alien in the eye. Name. The Talari raised his head slowly. Call Nexus. Formerly of the Concord's Prime Genome Directive. The name meant nothing to Rake. Why come here? Nexus? You don't belong in the wilds. We're the forgotten, the discarded. Your kind left us to die with our blood and bones. I came, Call said, his voice measured, because I've seen what we did to your people, and I believe you're the only ones who can undo it. The wind shifted. Even the dust seemed to pause. Talk, Ray growled. Call's gaze swept across the silent crowd. Humanity was broken. Long ago. You were strong, unpredictable, ferocious. You refused to kneel. So they rewrote you. Engineered your species to be compliant. No war, no fire, no children. A docile, sterile servant race, optimized for diplomacy, logistics, peacekeeping. Peace at the cost of purpose. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Reg's jaw tightened. But you, Call continued, nodding to the scorched surroundings, escaped. You severed the link when the implants came. You hid on this irradiated rock and kept the fire alive. Your people are the last true humans. Reg stood, boots scraping against iron dust. You came all this way to flatter us? No, Call met his gaze. I came because something's changing in the Concord. There's unrest, fractures. I saw a glimpse of what the future holds. A complete erasure of your kind. Genetic sterilization on a galactic scale. It's already started on fringe colonies. If the flame dies here, it dies forever. The implications hit like a hammer. The crowd stirred. We've survived this long, someone barked from the crowd. We'll survive longer. Call shook his head. You misunderstand. This time, they won't just leave you. They're coming. With weapons you can't match, science you can't fathom, and minds that no longer think like yours. Talon crossed his arms. So why defect? Guilt. Call hesitated. I saw a child born in a sterile dome, blonde, bright-eyed, and designed in a tank. He would never feel hunger, never bruise, never bleed, never fight. He smiled, but it wasn't real. It was a program stitched into his DNA. And I realized, we didn't save humanity. We murdered it. His voice cracked, and for a moment, the crowd saw not an alien, but a man consumed by regret. I want to help you fight back, but I can't do it alone. You've kept the fire alive. Let me give you the spark to make it ablaze. Reg stared at him. The words settled like ash. Behind him, a blacksmith stepped forward. We don't trust you. Nurse should you, Call said, but trust this. If you don't rise, you will fall, and the galaxy will forget that humanity ever burned. Silence reigned. Wind screamed past the towers again, carrying grit and sparks. Finally, Reg turned. Throw him in the deep cell. Feed him. Watch him. If he lies, gut him. As the guards dragged Call away, the crowd slowly dispersed, but the fire had already been lit in Reg's mind and in the hearts of those who had listened. Later that night, Talon stood on the watch spire alone, overlooking the jagged horizon. He watched the stars, cold and countless, burning in the sky, and he whispered, almost to himself, "We are not meant for peace. We are not meant to be still." Behind him, a distant forge screamed to life. Hammers rang on steel. The Forgeborn were listening, and the galaxy would soon remember what it meant to fear the wilds of man. The deep cells beneath Fort Hold were carved from volcanic bedrock, half ancient stone and half forgotten machines. The walls radiated a constant heat, sweating condensation down iron plating bolted over fissures. Chains clinked faintly in the dark. Rats, twice the size of fists, scurried underfoot, giving the lone Telari prisoner a wide berth. Kalnexus sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, back against the wall of his cell. He had not spoken since his capture. He had not eaten, either, though his physiology was advanced enough to endure for days without food. Reg Talon stood just beyond the cell bars, his armored bulk filling the corridor. In his left hand was a Forged War axe, in his right, a small, cracked data pad. It buzzed with old, static-laced logs, fragments of the Concord's medical archives, which Call had submitted voluntarily. "So," Talon said, voice low and rough, "you're not lying. Or if you are, you've buried the truth in so many facts I can't dig it out." Call opened his eyes. "I never needed to lie," he said. "The truth is far worse." Talon tossed the datapad against the wall. It clattered, sparking. "I watched the recordings, saw humans, our kin, smiling like glass dolls while machines dug into their skulls. They called it optimization. You call it mercy. I call it butchery." Call flinched. "It was never supposed to be like that." Talon approached the bars. "Then tell me how it was supposed to be. No riddles this time, Nexus. No diplomatic rot. I want truth. All of it." Call slowly stood, joints clicking. He stepped forward until the bars were the only thing between him and the Forgeborn warlord. "I was born on Kural Station, orbiting Concord Prime. My mother was a vat-grown physician. My father, a genome architect. I was designed to be a healer. For 200 years, I repaired what others broke. Blood vessels, organs, nervous systems. You don't look 200. Call gave a faint smile. "A perk of post-organic regeneration. My body's rebuilt itself 57 times. My memories have not." He paused, then continued. "I oversaw the pacification protocol on 73 human colonies. I didn't question the orders at first. After all, what we were told was simple. Humanity, in its raw state, was too chaotic to sustain a peaceful galactic order. So we helped. We filtered out aggression, sterilized reproductive variants, and replaced dangerous impulses with obedience genes. The new humans were calm, efficient, silent." Talon's expression darkened. "Silent." Call nodded. "They didn't laugh. They didn't cry. They didn't rebel." He reached into the folds of his robe and removed a small holodisk. With a flick, it lit up, projecting a recording into the cell's center. The hologram showed a group of humans, young, healthy, clean-cut, seated in a circle. They chanted affirmations with hollow smiles. Their eyes were lifeless. They were empty. Call looked away. 3 years ago, I met a woman named Sarah Wynn, a diplomat born on the core world of Astral. She was perfect, flawless speech, perfect symmetry, emotionally neutral. One day, during a scan, I discovered traces of suppressed neural pathways, memories of childhood, of fear, of joy. She had somehow resisted full optimization. She asked me if dreams were allowed. That's when I knew. "You were wrong," Talon said. "I was evil," Call answered, voice barely audible, "and I wanted to stop. But no one in the Concord believed me. So I ran, took everything I could, data, prototypes, evidence, and followed the rumors. Stories about humans who hadn't changed. Primitive, savage, alive. I found you." Talon stepped back from the bars, considering. And now you want to give us weapons? I want to give you yourselves. Call reached into his robe again, slowly, cautiously. The guards tensed, but he only produced a vial, a tiny container no larger than a fingertip, filled with flickering amber liquid. This is Ember Strain 17A, my final project, based on recovered pre-optimization DNA sequences. It's not a virus, it's a catalyst. When introduced to the optimized, it reawakens suppressed neural architecture, dreams, emotion, memory. It's painful, terrifying, but it works. Talon frowned. Sounds like a curse. Maybe it is, Call admitted, but it's also a choice. Something the Concord stole from you. Talon turned away. You think I'll just let you infect people with this? No. I think you'll test it. See for yourself. Silence. Then, you'll be escorted to the Forge Clinic at dawn. Talon said over his shoulder. Try anything clever. I'll open you up with a mining laser. Call nodded. Fair. The next morning, under crimson skies, a team of Forgeborn guards led Call to the Forge Clinic, an underground medical facility half-built into molten stone. Steel beams groaned above, and flickering biolamps bathed the room in sickly green light. Tables lined the walls, along with salvaged Concord tech and brutal analog instruments. In the center was a single woman. Her name was Elsa Vorn, an off-world human captured a year ago during a scouting raid on a Concord outpost. She had not spoken since her arrival. Her body was strong, but her eyes were hollow. Talon watched her now, arms folded. We tried everything, he said. Medicine, electricity, isolation. Nothing woke her up. She's a breathing corpse. Call stepped forward. Then let me try. The guards hesitated. Talon nodded once. Call approached Elsa slowly. She didn't flinch as he took her hand and gently injected the contents of the vial into a vein along her wrist. Then they waited. 10 seconds. 20. Her breathing changed. She began to shake, then scream. Not a Concord-compliant yelp or simulated distress. This was raw, animal. Her body seized. Her spine arched violently. The scream echoed through the Forge Clinic like a blade across stone. Talon reached for his weapon. She's dying. No, Call said firmly. She's remembering. Memories slammed into Elsa's brain like meteors. Her mother's voice, the sound of rain, the cold of winter, a brother's laughter, pain, loneliness, anger. Her muscles locked, then relaxed. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She opened her eyes and screamed again, this time in fury. Two guards stepped forward, but Call raised a hand. Elsa sat up, panting. She looked at them, then at her hands. For a long, breathless moment, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "Where am I?" Reg stepped closer. "You're home, girl. You're human again." That night, the Forge Hall was alive with firelight and voices. News of Elsa's awakening spread like wildfire. The Forgeborn, hardened though they were, looked at her like she was a prophet returned from the grave. Call stood beside Reg on the upper tier of the hall. She remembers everything, Call said. Her family, her training, even the optimization process. But she also remembers what it felt like to be free. Talon didn't smile, but his eyes were no longer cold. And you're saying we can do this across the galaxy? With the right vectors. Yes, the Ember strain is designed to spread in controlled vectors. Airborne, fluid-based, even digital if you have a Concord uplink. It's not about infection. It's about reawakening. Reg stared down at the fire pits below, at his people sharpening blades and passing stories between generations. Then we start small. Just a few targets. Drones who might still have souls buried deep. If this works, it will, Call said. But you'll need more than fire. You'll need a symbol, something to rally behind. A message to show the galaxy that you aren't animals. You're the real humanity. Reg nodded slowly. Then it's time to bring the Forge to the stars. He turned to Call. Welcome to the fire, Nexus. Let's burn the chains. The cold metal walls of the council chamber hummed with tension, the air thick with smoke, and the heavy scent of oil and sweat. The Forgeborn leaders, a ragtag assembly of grizzled veterans, scavengers, and former scientists, sat clustered around a massive steel table, scarred and dented from decades of debate and blood. At the head of the table stood Warden Reg Talon, his armored frame casting a long shadow beneath the harsh overhead lamps. Beside him, Call Nexus shifted nervously, the alien's amber eyes flickering with cautious hope. The chamber's silence was broken by Maravas, the sharp-tongued commander of the Forgeborn militia. You want us to gamble our survival on some alien toxin? Not a toxin, Call replied, voice calm but insistent. A key to unlock what was stolen, to bring back what the Concord erased. Mara slammed her fist on the table. We've lived by steel and fire for generations. We don't trust promises made in labs or whispers from worlds we barely know. Reg raised a hand, signaling for order. Everyone, he said, voice carrying the weight of command. We are standing at a crossroads. For decades, we've fought to survive against a galaxy that forgot we exist. The Concord sees us as relics, as problems to be cleansed. He looked toward Call. This ember strain you speak of, it's our chance to fight back not just with fists and blades, but with the very blood in our veins. But it's dangerous, painful, unpredictable. From the far side of the room, old Garen, a grizzled mechanic whose face was more scar than skin, grunted, "If it wakes us up, brings back the fire, I'm willing to burn the pain." Murmurs rippled through the room. Some nodded, others frowned. Fear and hope wrestled openly. Call stepped forward, placing a weathered data pad on the table. The holographic projection burst into life, displaying swirling strands of DNA interlaced with complex neural maps. "This is the flesh doctrine," Call explained. "It's not just about reversing genetic modification. It's about reclaiming our souls. It's a manifesto embedded in code and biology, a blueprint for true human revival." He tapped the display, zooming into glowing sequences. Optimized humans are like machines running on scripts written by others. The flesh doctrine tears up those scripts. It awakens suppressed instincts, creativity, courage, defiance, even anger. The very things the Concord tried to erase. Mara narrowed her eyes. "Sounds like rebellion." "It is," Call said, "but it's more than that. It's evolution. The next step for humanity. We're not meant to be tools or puppets. We're meant to be fire." Reg folded his arms. "And what are the risks? What if it drives people mad? What if it makes them into monsters?" "Those are real risks," Call admitted. "Some will reject the strain. Some will suffer. But the alternative is extinction. We stand on the edge of oblivion." The room was silent again, the weight of choice settling on every shoulder. At that moment, the chamber doors burst open. A scout runner, breathless and dust-covered, stumbled in. "Warden, the Concord fleet has been spotted near the outer rim. They're sending patrols closer to the wilds, scouting for Forgeborn activity." A cold dread settled like ice. Reg's jaw clenched. "They're coming." He looked back at Call. "We don't have time for tests or delays. If we want to survive, we need allies. We need a spark to ignite a rebellion across the stars." Call nodded solemnly. "Then we make the flesh doctrine more than words. We make it a movement." The next days were a blur of frantic activity. The Forge Clinic became a crucible of hope and pain as volunteers lined up to receive the Ember strain. Each injection was a gamble. Some experienced vivid nightmares, others violent convulsions. But slowly, flickers of change emerged. Elsavarn, once hollow and broken, began to lead training sessions, her voice strong and passionate. Her memories of the Concord's sterile world were sharp, fueling her rage against the oppressors. She told the Forgeborn stories of peace enforced by control, of lives without choice or passion. "Freedom," she said, "is not just survival. It's fire in your veins. It's rage in your heart. It's the courage to fight even when the odds say you won't win." Her words spread like wildfire through Fourhold. The Forgeborn fighters, fueled by the doctrine and the Ember strain, began to see themselves not as relics, but as revolutionaries. Reg stood beside Elsa during a demonstration of new combat tactics, blending old Forgeborn brutality with precise, coordinated strikes inspired by Call's knowledge of Concord warfare. "We're not just fighting to live," Reg told his commanders. "We're fighting to burn the chains that bind us." But not everyone was convinced. Mara Voss remained skeptical, watching the changing soldiers with suspicion. One evening, she confronted Call alone in the Forge Works, where molten metal cast flickering shadows. "You're asking us to bet everything on a dream written in DNA," she said. "What if you're wrong? What if the strain makes us weaker, more vulnerable? You speak of fire, but what if you're lighting a powder keg that burns us all to ash?" Call met her eyes, steady and unflinching. "Then we burn brighter," he replied. But if we do nothing, the Concorde's shadow will snuff us out like candles in the wind. Mara didn't respond immediately. Her gaze drifted to the glowing forge pits. Finally, she said, "We'll watch. We'll wait. But if this flesh doctrine turns on us, you'll be the first to fight it," Call said quietly. "I wouldn't expect anything less." Meanwhile, beneath the surface of Four Hold, a deeper battle was brewing. Raig's trusted lieutenant, Serenkor, uncovered signs of a Concorde spy embedded in their midst, someone leaking information about the Ember Strain and the Forgeborn's plans. The knowledge sent ripples of paranoia through the rebel city. Trust, already fragile, began to crack. Raig held an emergency war council in the war room, a cavernous chamber lit by flickering screens and tactical maps. "We are on the brink of war," he said. "Our enemies have spies. Our enemies have machines, but they do not have our spirit. We will root out the traitor, protect the doctrine, and prepare for the fight that will decide the fate of humanity." Call watched as Raig's voice galvanized the room. Here, in the depths of exile, something extraordinary was taking shape. Not just a rebellion, a resurgence. The flesh doctrine was no longer theory. It was war. The shadows of Four Hold had grown longer, stretching across corridors and alleyways, wrapping the rebel city in a cloak of uncertainty. The discovery of a spy within the Forgeborn's ranks was more than a betrayal. It was a wound that threatened to bleed out the fragile hope they had kindled with the Ember Strain. Warden Raig Talon paced in his private chambers, a cavernous room lined with relics of humanity's past, broken helmets, faded flags, rusted tools. His hands clenched into fists as he stared at the tactical holomap flickering before him, displaying the outer rim of their scattered strongholds. Serenkor, his trusted lieutenant, entered quietly, the weight of recent news heavy in her gaze. "Warden, I have narrowed down the suspect pool," she said, voice low. "But the spy is cunning. They cover their tracks well." Raig nodded grimly. "We can't afford mistakes. This rebellion is fragile, like molten metal cooling too fast. We need to strike carefully," Saren said. "Too soon, and the spy disappears. Too late, and our plans are compromised." Raig rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "Call's research must be protected. If the Concorde learns how to reverse the Ember Strain, everything is lost." Meanwhile, far from Forgehold's fire-forged walls, Kalnexus sat alone in a dimly lit lab tucked beneath layers of crude stone and steel. His amber eyes flickered with a mixture of exhaustion and determination. The strain coursed through his veins, awakening parts of his mind that had long been dormant. On the worn table before him lay samples of the Ember Strain, vials glowing faintly with a reddish hue. Call's hands moved deftly, adjusting chemical compounds and monitoring data feeds streaming from rebel operatives in the field. Suddenly, an alert blinked on his console, an encrypted message from a remote scout. "Concorde patrol detected near Sector Z9. Possible reinforcements inbound. Recommend immediate action." Call's heart quickened. The Concorde was tightening its noose. He sent a rapid reply. "Mobilize defensive teams. Coordinate with Warden Rake. The Ember Strain must survive." Back in Forgehold, the city's inhabitants prepared for what many feared was an inevitable clash. The streets buzzed with activity as blacksmiths hammered out blades infused with nanotech. Medics studied the effects of the Ember Strain on volunteers, and strategists pored over star maps. Among the crowd was Elsa Varn, her eyes blazing with renewed purpose. She had become one of the fiercest advocates of the flesh doctrine, leading squads that trained day and night. At the heart of Forgehold's central square, Elsa addressed a gathering of recruits. "We are more than survivors. We are fire, unyielding and fierce. The Ember Strain has shown us that. It has given us strength not just in muscle, but in mind and soul." A cheer rose from the crowd, a spark of unity igniting the space. But beneath the surface of hope, doubts still lingered. Mara Voss, standing at the edge of the crowd, watched with a critical eye. The strain had altered some recruits unpredictably. Bouts of aggression, strange visions, even moments of disorientation. "Fire can warm," Mara muttered, "but it can also burn everything to ash." As night fell, a covert meeting took place in the shadowed tunnels beneath Forgehold. Raig, Saren, Call, and a handful of trusted commanders huddled around a flickering holomap. Recon reports indicate Concord patrols are moving in, Raig said sharply. They're hunting for the Ember strain samples. If they find them, his voice trailed off, the threat unspoken but understood. Saren tapped a nearby console. We have two choices. Hide the samples deeper or launch a preemptive strike to disrupt their patrols. Call interjected. Hiding won't stop them forever. The Ember strain is a beacon. Once the Concord traces it, they'll come with everything they have. Raig's eyes burned with resolve. Then we strike first. We hit their patrols hard and fast, disrupt their communications. We show them that the Forgeborn are no longer prey. Plans were quickly laid out, teams assembled, and weapons readied. The attack came at dawn. The Concord patrol ships, sleek and imposing, glided through the crimson-hued atmosphere of the Outer Rim. Sensors blinked, scanning for life signs and anomalies. But the Forgeborn were ready. Hidden in the ash-strewn canyons, rebel squads armed with ember-enhanced weapons waited with bated breath. The first salvo was deafening. Plasma bolts lanced through the sky, shattering the silence with violent bursts of light. Call fought alongside the militia, the ember strain coursing through his veins, sharpening his reflexes and focus. His hands moved swiftly, coordinating strikes and countermeasures, his alien physiology melding with human fire. Elsa led a squad to flank the enemy, her voice cutting through the chaos. Forgeborn, forward, burn the Concord's steel. The battle was brutal and swift. Despite the Concord's advanced technology, their patrols were unprepared for the fierce, unpredictable assault fueled by the Ember strain. By midday, the patrols lay in ruins, scattered wreckage smoldering across the barren landscape. But the victory came with a cost. Several Forgeborn fighters lay wounded or dead, and the Concord would undoubtedly send reinforcements. Back in Fourhold, news of the battle spread like wildfire. The rebel city pulsed with renewed energy. For the first time, many felt that victory was possible. Yet the spy remained undetected. Raig convened a new meeting, his voice grim. This victory was crucial, but it has made us a target. The spy has not gone silent. We must find them before they destroy everything we've built. Saren stepped forward, her face hard. I've been monitoring communications. There's unusual activity in Sector Gamma, encrypted transmissions that don't match our codes. Raig nodded. Prepare a team. We move at first light. Alone, he studied the latest data from the Ember strain trials. Despite the success on the battlefield, the strain still held mysteries, strange neurological feedback loops, unexplained surges of adrenaline, and moments where subjects seemed to slip into near-feral states. Call's fingers hovered over the controls, conflicted. The Ember strain was powerful, yes, but was it sustainable? Suddenly, a memory flashed, a moment from the Concord's labs, a warning buried deep in the data. The Ember strain is a double-edged sword. It grants power, but awakens dormant chaos. The question gnawed at him. How much fire could the Forgeborn wield before it consumed them? Night fell again over Fourhold, and in the quiet that followed, unseen eyes watched from the darkness. The spy was closer than anyone imagined, moving silently among the rebels, waiting for the right moment to strike. And as the flames of rebellion blazed brighter, so too did the shadows lengthen, promising that the coming days would test the Forgeborn's strength, loyalty, and resolve like never before. The hunt for the spy had begun. Fourhold, once a bastion of hope and fire, now bristled with suspicion. Every glance was measured, every word weighed with the fear that the enemy could be lurking just one breath away. The Ember strain had given the Forgeborn strength, but paranoia threatened to tear them apart from within. Warden Raig Talon sat in the war room, the walls lined with holoscreens displaying intercepted communications, troop movements, and surveillance feeds. His face was drawn tight with focus, but his eyes betrayed the weariness of constant vigilance. Saren, his lieutenant, stood by his side, reviewing encrypted data on a floating panel. The transmissions from Sector Gamma are increasing in frequency, she said quietly. Whoever the spy is, they're accelerating their operations. Raig nodded grimly. We can't wait for them to make a mistake. We need to root them out. The next morning, Raig summoned a select team of investigators, some of the most trusted warriors and analysts among the Forgeborn. The group was small, handpicked for loyalty and discretion. Saren, Elsavarn, Maravas, and a few others who had proven their resolve in battle. We'll begin with interviews, Reg instructed. Everyone who has access to the Ember strain data, to our communications, and to key locations. No one is above suspicion. Mara stepped forward, her voice sharp. We need to act fast. The longer this spy remains hidden, the more damage they can do. Elsa looked around the room, her expression fierce. We've faced worse threats than shadows in our midst. We'll find the traitor and burn them out. The investigation began with interrogations. One by one, suspects were brought in, questioned under intense scrutiny. Some cracked under pressure, others remained stoic. Each exchange was a tense battle of wills. In a dim chamber deep beneath Fort Hold, Mara confronted a young communications officer, Liran, whose nervousness had already raised eyebrows. Liran, Mara said, her voice cold, your encrypted transmissions don't match our protocols. Explain. The youth swallowed hard, eyes darting. I am just following orders. I don't know what you mean. Mara leaned closer. Orders from whom? Who do you answer to? Liran's resolve faltered. There's someone who contacts me off-grid. I don't know their name. They tell me what to send, when to send it. Mara's eyes narrowed. Where is this someone now? Liran shook his head, fear etched into his face. I don't know. I swear. They use secure channels. Mara exchanged a glance with Saren. The spy's web was deeper than they feared. Meanwhile, Elsa's group worked to track patterns in the data, analyzing transmissions, cross-referencing logs, and trying to find any slip in the spy's digital mask. Hours turned into days. Tensions flared as suspicions grew. Elsa confided to Mara one evening as they watched the flickering forge fires. This strain, this fire, it's changing us. Not just physically. People are different, more volatile. Mara's eyes were hard. That's what scares me. Power without control is a wildfire. We have to trust each other, Elsa said quietly, or we're already lost. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Saren was monitoring a distant relay station when she noticed a subtle anomaly, an encrypted burst that coincided with a sudden power surge. She traced the signal back to a rarely used communications node near the outer perimeter of Forgehold. Reg ordered a small team to investigate, moving swiftly but cautiously. As the team approached the node under cover of darkness, their footsteps echoing softly against the rocky terrain, a faint flicker of movement caught Saren's eye. She gestured sharply, and the team froze. A figure darted into the shadows. Stop, Saren commanded, but the figure vanished into the labyrinth of tunnels. A tense chase began, winding through narrow passages and over crumbling catwalks. Finally, the team cornered the suspect in a dead-end corridor. The figure turned, a woman, her face obscured by a hood. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then the hood fell back, revealing eyes that were cold, calculating, and human. The captured woman was taken to the war room for questioning. Reg stood before her, voice firm but measured. Who are you? Why betray the Forgeborn? She met his gaze without fear. My name is Kara Silas, she said quietly. I'm not your enemy. Not really. Reg's brow furrowed. Explain. Kara's eyes flickered with a hint of desperation. I was once like you, fighting for survival. But the Concord, they showed me truths you refused to see. She paused, then continued. The Ember strain is not just a weapon. It's a contagion. It changes us. Yes, but not always for the better. The Concord wants to control it because they fear what it represents. The chaos, the unpredictability. Reg's fists clenched. So you spy for them? No, Kara shook her head. I spy on them, to protect us. The room fell silent, confusion mixing with disbelief. Kara explained how she had infiltrated the Concord's ranks long ago, playing a dangerous double game. She had learned that the Concord's real plan was to unleash a synthetic virus designed to suppress the Ember strain, and with it, the Forgeborn's fire. They want to sterilize humanity's spirit, Kara said bitterly, to turn us into docile machines. Saren stepped forward. If that's true, why risk being caught? Kara's voice was steady. Because the Forgeborn need to understand what they're really up against. Knowledge is power. Elsa eyed Kara carefully. And how do we know we can trust you? Kara looked around, then met Elsa's gaze. You don't. But you have to believe that sometimes the greatest threat comes not from without, but from within. The revelation sent shockwaves through the leadership. Reg mulled over the choice. Trust a known spy claiming to be a double agent, or purge and risk losing critical intelligence. In the end, necessity won. They decided to use Kara's knowledge, but kept her closely guarded. Over the following days, Kara worked alongside Call and the research teams, helping them decipher Concord data and develop countermeasures. Her insights accelerated their understanding of the Ember Strain's vulnerabilities and strengths. But not everyone welcomed her presence. Mara remained cold, her distrust palpable. One night, Mara confronted Kara alone in the Forge Works. "Why should I believe you?" Mara demanded. Kara's eyes hardened. "Because I'm the only one who knows what's coming and how to stop it," Mara spat. "Or maybe you're just another spark that will burn us down." Kara held her gaze, unflinching. Meanwhile, tension mounted as the Concord's reinforcements neared. Scouts reported increased patrols, more aggressive sweeps near Forgeborn territories. Ray called a council. "We stand on the edge of war," he said, "but we are no longer hiding in the dark." He looked at Call, Elsa, Mara, and Saren. "We have the Ember Strain, yes, but now we also have knowledge, courtesy of Kara. We will fight not just with fire, but with cunning." The room hummed with renewed purpose, but the cost was clear. The Ember Strain continued to alter those who bore it. Some showed incredible strength and focus. Others spiraled into violent outbursts or strange episodes of detachment. Call worked tirelessly to understand these effects, but admitted, "We're still learning." The strain awakens the soul, but it can also unleash chaos. Elsa, once a symbol of hope, confided to Reg, "I fear what we're becoming. Fire is beautiful, but dangerous." Reg's response was steady. "Better to burn bright for a moment than to never have lit the sky at all." The chapter closed as the Forgeborn steeled themselves for the coming storm. The spy hunt had revealed uncomfortable truths and forged uneasy alliances. The Ember Strain was no longer just a weapon. It was a force that could unite or destroy. And the fate of humanity's last rebellion would depend on how fiercely they could control the fire within. The days that followed Kara Silas's reluctant alliance with the Forgeborn passed in a relentless blur of preparation, tension, and discovery. The war drums of the Concord grew louder, echoing across the fractured wasteland beyond Forgehold's towering walls. Every sunrise brought the promise of battle, and every night a reminder of the fragile peace held by a brittle thread. Reg Talon stood atop the highest battlement, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the ashen sky met the jagged ruins of the old world. His thoughts churned like a storm. The spy's revelations had shifted everything, but the looming threat remained as deadly as ever. Beside him, Kara watched silently, her expression unreadable. "Do you really believe we can stop them?" Reg asked, voice low. Kara's eyes flickered with a mix of weariness and determination. "The Concord underestimates the ember within us. They think they can snuff it out. But fire doesn't die easily." Reg nodded slowly. "Then we need to make sure that fire burns brighter than ever." Inside the Forge Works below, Call and his team worked feverishly. The room buzzed with energy as scientists, engineers, and Ember Strain carriers collaborated, combining ancient technologies with newfound knowledge from Kara's intel. Call held up a small vial filled with a glowing orange liquid. "This is the first prototype of what we call Flare Serum, a stabilizer designed to amplify the Ember Strain's positive effects while dampening the violent outbursts." Elsa Varn, ever the skeptic, examined the vial closely. "And you're confident it will work?" Call shrugged. "We won't know until we try." He looked over the gathered group. "We'll need volunteers for the trials." Mara Voss stepped forward without hesitation. "I'll do it." Her eyes shone with a mixture of resolve and something deeper, fear, perhaps, or the weight of leadership. The trials began the very next day. Mara received the serum under Call's watchful gaze, her body tense but determined. The initial effects were subtle, warmth spreading through her veins, a sharpening of senses, a calm fire burning deep inside. As hours passed, the changes grew more profound. Mara's strength increased, her reflexes honed to near superhuman precision. Yet, the dangerous volatility that had plagued others was kept in check. "It's working," Call announced quietly, relief evident in his voice. Word spread quickly. The flare serum was a beacon of hope, a way to harness the ember strain without succumbing to its madness. But the hope was tempered by reality. The Concord's forces were mobilizing faster than expected. Scouts reported vast fleets of mechanized units, heavily armed and equipped with advanced suppression technologies. Raig convened the War Council once more. "We can't face them head-on," he declared. "Not yet. Our strength lies in guerrilla tactics, in fire and shadow." Saren Kor, analyzing fresh intelligence, nodded. "We have an advantage in mobility and terrain. We know this land better than they ever will." Kara added, "And we have time, if we use it wisely." Under cover of darkness, the Forgeborn launched their first offensive. A small strike team, led by Mara and Elsa, moved swiftly through the jagged canyons, ambushing a supply convoy. The battle was fierce but brief. Flare serum coursed through Mara's veins, sharpening her instincts. She moved with deadly grace, disabling enemy units with precision strikes. Elsa's blazing ember weapons cut through steel and fire alike. When the dust settled, the Forgeborn had crippled the enemy's supply line and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Back at Four Hold, the victory was celebrated, but with caution. Kara's warnings lingered. "The Concord will retaliate," she said grimly. "Harder, faster." Her words proved prophetic. Days later, sensors detected a massive assault force approaching. Raig issued the order to prepare. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Forgeborn had faced. Concord mechs advanced in synchronized waves, their suppressors firing pulses designed to destabilize the ember strain. Flames erupted across the battlefield as Forgeborn fighters pushed back with everything they had. Mara, enhanced by the flare serum, led the charge, her movements a blur of fire and steel. But the enemy's technology was relentless. Several Forgeborn carriers faltered, their ember fires dimming under the suppressor's assault. Amidst the chaos, Kara spotted a critical vulnerability, a command node embedded within the enemy formation. She relayed the coordinates to Raig. "If we take out that node, their suppressors will fail," she explained. Raig nodded. "Then that's our target." A daring strike team was assembled. Mara volunteered again, leading the assault deep into enemy lines. The mission was perilous. Mechs and drones swarmed in defense, and every step forward was met with deadly resistance. Yet, the Forgeborn pressed on, driven by fire and fury. In the heart of the enemy's formation, Mara reached the command node. Her hands moved swiftly, planting charges while deflecting attacks. The countdown began. Seconds later, a massive explosion ripped through the ranks, disabling the suppressors. The battlefield shifted instantly. The ember strain flared to life within the Forgeborn fighters, their power surging. With renewed strength, they drove the Concord forces back in a blazing retreat. As the dust settled, Raig surveyed the aftermath. "We've won this battle," he said, voice heavy with both pride and exhaustion. "But the war is far from over." Kara approached him, eyes reflecting the dying embers of the fight. "This victory shows what we can achieve when we control the fire," she said. "But we must be ready for the flames to consume everything if we lose control." That night, as Four Hold burned with renewed vigor, the Forgeborn knew their true challenge was only beginning. The ember strain was a gift and a curse. The horizon burned bright with promise and peril alike, and humanity's last rebellion would have to fight not just for survival, but for the very soul of their kind. The embers of battle still smoldered across the scarred wasteland, but within the walls of Four Hold, an uneasy calm settled. Victory had been hard-won, yet the war's end was nowhere in sight. The Forgeborn had gained ground, but the Concord remained relentless, their machines advancing, their suppression technologies adapting. Raig alone sat deep in thought within his private quarters, the glow of a small forge casting flickering shadows on the stone walls. The war weighed heavy on him. He could feel the strain of leadership settling into his bones, the endless cycle of strategy, loss, and hope threatening to consume his spirit. At the same time, a question gnawed at him, one he had avoided for too long. What was the true origin of the ember strain? Call was the only one who might hold answers. The scientist had dedicated years to studying the mysterious force that flowed within the Forgeborn, yet even he admitted its origins were shrouded in myth and secrecy. Raig summoned Call to the chamber. Tell me everything you know, Rake said simply. Call adjusted his glasses and began, voice steady but cautious. The Ember strain is more than a biological mutation, he explained. It's a remnant of ancient technology, a fusion of genetics and lost science dating back to the old world. He pointed to a hollow map of the ruins beyond Fourhold. There was a facility, the Pyra Core, said to have been the crucible where the Ember strain was first engineered. It was destroyed in the collapse, but some believe fragments remain. Reg frowned. And why have we never sought it out? Because it's dangerous, Call answered. The core may hold answers, but it could also unleash destruction beyond our control. Reg's jaw tightened. We need those answers. The next morning, Reg convened a council. We must send a team to the Pyra Core, he declared. Saren Core exchanged a look with Mara Voss. It's a suicide mission, Mara said bluntly. Or a chance to end this war, Reg countered. After tense debate, the decision was made. A reconnaissance team, led by Mara and Kara, would venture beyond known territory to find the Pyra Core. As the team prepared, Call handed Mara a small device. This is an Ember stabilizer. It should help regulate your strain during the mission. Mara nodded, pocketing the device. She looked over the rugged group, warriors, scouts, and scientists, all hardened by years of survival. Kara approached quietly. Whatever you find, she said, remember that knowledge is a double-edged sword. Mara met her gaze. We'll be careful. The journey was brutal. The wasteland beyond Fourhold was a graveyard of shattered cities and twisted metal, scarred by centuries of war and neglect. Toxic winds whipped against their armor, and echoes of forgotten battles haunted the ruins. Yet, deeper than the physical dangers was the strain within themselves. The Ember strain burned fiercely inside them, a source of power, yes, but also a constant battle against madness and pain. Mara felt it most acutely, the flame within flaring unpredictably, but the stabilizer helped steady her. Days passed. They followed cryptic coordinates and fragmented legends, navigating ancient tunnels and collapsed structures. Then, beneath the rubble of a fallen skyscraper, they found it, the Pyra Core, a massive, cylindrical structure, half-buried and humming faintly with residual energy. Inside, the air was thick with heat and electricity. Walls were lined with arcane machines, glyphs etched in metal, and conduits pulsing with a strange, molten glow. Call's team set to work, scanning and decoding. Hours stretched into an eerie silence broken only by the hum of ancient technology. Then, from the depths of the core's main chamber, Mara heard a voice, not human, but something else, a soft, resonant echo that seemed to ripple through the air. Welcome, it said. The team froze. Call's eyes widened. An AI, a remnant from before the collapse. The AI identified itself as Pyra, a sentient guardian created to oversee the Ember strain's origin and purpose. It revealed the truth. The Ember strain was designed as a tool to awaken latent human potential, a last effort by the old world scientists to prepare humanity for a cataclysm they foresaw. But the power was unstable, Pyra admitted. Its effects unpredictable and dangerous. That's why the core was destroyed, to contain the threat. Mara's heart pounded. So, the Ember strain is both a gift and a curse, she murmured. Pyra's voice was somber. Yes, it can uplift or consume. The choice lies within those who wield it. The revelation stirred deep questions within the team. What did it mean for their struggle? Could the Ember strain be controlled, mastered for the future? Or was it a ticking bomb threatening to destroy them all? Call was eager to access Pyra's archives, hoping to find a way to refine the flare serum. But Mara sensed a shadow beneath the data, a warning buried deep. We must be cautious, she urged. Power without wisdom leads to ruin. As the team prepared to leave, the core's security systems flickered to life. Automated defenses activated, drones and turrets aiming to protect the secrets. A fierce battle erupted within the ancient halls. Mara and Kara fought side by side, their bond strengthened by trust and shared purpose. They moved with the fluidity and fire of Forgeborn warriors, pushing back the defenses until the core was silenced once more. Exhausted but victorious, they returned to Forgehold carrying the knowledge of the past. Reg met them at the gates. What did you find? He demanded. Mara's eyes were heavy with weariness and resolve. The Ember Strain is a legacy, a force that can shape humanity's destiny, she said. But it must be tempered with wisdom, or it will consume us all. Call held up data drives filled with Pyra's archives. This knowledge will help us refine our strategies and our serums. Kara added quietly, but the Concord will want it too. They will stop at nothing to seize the core's secrets. The chapter closed on a world trembling between light and shadow. The Forgeborn now carried not just a weapon, but a burden, a legacy of power and peril. The choices they made would shape not only the war, but the very future of humanity. The echoes of the past had spoken, and the fire within would decide what came next. The return from the Pyra Core was a victory tinged with unease. Though the Forgeborn had gained invaluable knowledge about the Ember Strain's origin and potential, the revelation also cast a long shadow over their cause. The burden of the past, of an ancient power both gift and curse, settled heavily upon them all. Back within the fortress city of Forgehold, preparations for the next phase of the rebellion accelerated. The war was escalating, and the Concord was adapting quickly, its armies more numerous, its technology sharper and deadlier. The weight of knowledge. Reg Talon sat in the Great War Room. A map of the wasteland spread before him. His fingers traced the routes taken by the reconnaissance team, now returned from the Pyra Core. The faces of his closest advisors surrounded him: Mara Voss, Kara Silas, Call, and Saren Kor. They were tired, but their eyes burned with determination. "We have the knowledge," Reg said quietly, "but the Concord has the power to respond. They will come for the Core's secrets, and we must be ready." Call nodded, his expression grave. "The data from Pyra confirms that the Ember Strain can be enhanced, controlled, but it will take time to perfect the flare serum." Mara folded her arms. "Time we don't have. The Concord's next offensive will be massive." Saren's fingers danced over her tablet, pulling up recent satellite scans and intercepted communications. They've begun mobilizing a new unit, something we haven't seen before. Faster, more resilient. Reg's jaw clenched. "Then we strike first." A new threat emerges. Days later, news came from the front lines. The Concord's new weapon was revealed: sleek, humanoid battle drones known as Sentinels. Unlike the lumbering mechs, these Sentinels were agile and adaptive, capable of withstanding Ember Strain attacks thanks to advanced energy shields and rapid regeneration. Mara stood on the observation deck, watching a training simulation of the Sentinels in combat. "They're designed to hunt us," she said grimly, "to neutralize the very fire that makes us strong." Call approached, holding a datapad filled with analysis. "Their shields respond to the plasma emissions from Ember weapons. We'll need a new tactic, something unexpected." Kara crossed her arms. "We need to think like them, predict their moves before they happen." Reg placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. "Then we adapt. The Forgeborn have survived because we innovate." The forging of the Firestorm unit. Reg called for the creation of an elite task force, blending the best of Forgeborn warriors, scientists, and strategists. The unit was to be known as Firestorm, a rapid response strike force designed to counter the Sentinels and turn the tide of battle. Mara was appointed to lead Firestorm, a responsibility she accepted with fierce resolve. Training began in the sprawling Forge Works, where the heat of molten metal and the roar of industrial machinery fueled a relentless pace. The Firestorm unit tested new weapons and tactics, combining Ember Strain enhancements with experimental technology derived from the Pyra Core archives. One of the most promising developments was a prototype energy disruptor, a weapon capable of piercing the Sentinel's shields by emitting targeted electromagnetic pulses. Elsa Varn, the unit's weapons specialist, worked tirelessly to calibrate the disruptor. "We need to hit them where it hurts," she said. "If we can take down their shields, the Ember weapons will do the rest." Shadows among us. As the Firestorm unit trained, whispers of dissent and sabotage began to ripple through Forgehold. Ray grew wary. "Kara," he said, "we must be vigilant. Our enemies don't only fight on the battlefield." Kara nodded. "There's a spy among us, someone feeding the Concord information." The revelation hit hard. The Forgeborn had long suspected infiltrators, but confirmation brought fresh paranoia and fear. Kara launched a covert investigation, moving silently through the corridors and shadows of Fourhold. She gathered clues, intercepted messages, hidden devices, coded communications. Her suspicions fell on a small group within the administration, individuals who had recently gained access to sensitive information. A web of deceit. One evening, Kara followed a lead to a secluded chamber deep within Forgehold's lower levels. Inside, she found a hidden terminal streaming data to an unknown receiver. Before she could react, a figure stepped from the shadows, a young engineer named Dallin, known for his quiet demeanor but loyal reputation. "You don't understand," Dallin pleaded. "The Concord promised safety for my family. I had no choice." Kara's heart wavered for a moment, but duty prevailed. "You made your choice," she said firmly. With swift action, she disabled the transmission and took Dallin into custody. The cost of betrayal. The discovery of the spies sent shockwaves through the Forgeborn. Reg addressed the people of Fourhold. "We face enemies within and without," he said, voice steady but resolute. "Betrayal wounds deeply, but it will not break us." Mara looked out over the crowd, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The Firestorm unit's training intensified, now fueled not just by the urgency of war, but the betrayal that threatened their very unity. Preparing for the next battle. Days later, intelligence revealed the Concord's next move, a full-scale assault aimed at capturing Forgehold and the secrets of the Ember Strain. Ray gathered his commanders. "This will be the fiercest battle yet," he warned. "But we hold the flame of humanity. We fight not just for survival, but for our future." Mara tightened the straps on her armor, her eyes blazing. "We'll be ready." The eve of war. That night, Forgehold was alive with anticipation. Soldiers sharpened weapons, technicians made final calibrations, and the city's forges burned hotter than ever. Mara stood with Kara and Call near the forge's edge, watching the molten metal flow like liquid fire. Call broke the silence. "The data from Pyrrhus suggests the Ember Strain can evolve. We may unlock new abilities." Kara's gaze was steady. "If we survive." Mara clenched her fists. "We will." As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, the Forgeborn prepared to face the Concord's assault. The war was far from over. But within the Forge of Battle, a new hope was born. The Firestorm unit stood ready, a blazing beacon against the gathering darkness. The sky above Forgehold was a violent canvas of smoke, fire, and the distant thunder of artillery. The Concord's assault had begun. From the high battlements, Reg Talon watched as wave after wave of the enemy surged forward, their sentinels leading the charge with deadly precision. The air was thick with tension. Every soldier, every weapon, every heartbeat was part of the moment that could decide the fate of the Forgeborn rebellion. The first clash. The Firestorm unit moved swiftly through the city's winding streets and steel corridors, ready to engage the advancing sentinels. Mara Voss led the charge, her armor glowing faintly with the Ember Strain's energy. The new disruptor weapons, freshly tested and calibrated, were strapped to her back. "We hit their shields first," she commanded, voice sharp over the comms. "Take down the Sentinels' defenses, then we finish them with the flare." The streets erupted into chaos as the first Sentinels entered Fourhold. Their energy shields shimmered like impenetrable walls. But the Firestorm unit was prepared. Elsa Varn deployed her disruptor drones, swarms of small devices that zipped through the air, emitting pulses that fractured the Sentinel's shields. One by one, the shields flickered and failed. The Ember weapons ignited, searing metal and circuitry. The burning tide. Despite their initial success, the Concord forces were relentless. The Sentinels adapted quickly, reprogramming their defenses mid-battle. New drones arrived, some equipped with heavy artillery, others with specialized EMP devices designed to neutralize Ember Strain abilities. Mara fought fiercely, feeling the strain within her flare and flame intensify. Each battle left her more drained, but she pushed on, driven by the desperate hope that their sacrifice would save humanity's future. Meanwhile, Reg coordinated reinforcements, calling in reserves and organizing the defense of key positions. Serencor monitored enemy movements, her tactical mind a crucial asset amid the chaos. "Kara, lead the secondary squad to flank the enemy," Reg ordered. cut off their supply lines. Kara nodded and vanished into the smoke, her team melting into the shadows with deadly purpose. The heart of the siege, deep inside Forgehold's command center, Call worked feverishly. Using the data from Pyra, he sought ways to stabilize and amplify the Ember strain in their fighters, hoping to turn the tide. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he injected experimental serums into volunteers. The effects were promising: enhanced strength, reflexes, and resilience, but the risks remained high. "We're playing with fire," Call muttered, "but it's the only way." Mara's trial. Amid the fury of battle, Mara found herself face to face with a towering sentinel, its shield fully charged. The disruptor had failed to break through. Her flare surged in desperation, sending a blaze of plasma toward the machine's armor. The sentinel retaliated with a devastating blast, knocking Mara back and scorching the ground where she'd stood. Pain flared in her side, but she forced herself to rise. The Ember strain surged in response, healing and empowering her. With a roar, she launched herself at the sentinel again, this time striking at its exposed joints. The machine faltered. With a final burst of energy, Mara delivered a crushing blow that shattered its core. The turning point. The battle raged for hours. Blood and fire stained the streets, but slowly, the Forgeborn pushed the Concord back. Kara's squad successfully severed supply lines, crippling enemy reinforcements. Saren's tactical guidance prevented several breakthroughs, and Call's enhancements gave their fighters the edge they desperately needed. Yet the cost was high. The Forgeborn suffered heavy casualties. Every victory was tempered by loss. Mara stood amid the wreckage, breathing hard, the weight of command heavy on her. She knew this was only the beginning, a new resolve. As the dust settled, Reg gathered his commanders once more. "We've survived the crucible," he said, voice steady. "But the Concord will return." Mara met his gaze. "Then we'll be ready. We have the fire." Call nodded. "And the knowledge," Kara added quietly, "and the will to fight." The chapter closed on a world still burning, but alive with fierce hope. The Forgeborn were scarred, but unbroken. Their rebellion was far from over, and the fire within them would not be extinguished. The dawn broke over Forgehold, but the city was no longer the fortress of steel and fire it once was. Scars from the previous day's battle marked its walls: scorched metal, shattered glass, and smoke that still curled in reluctant wisps toward the sky. The air was thick with dust and the bitter scent of ozone and blood. Yet amidst the ruin, a new spirit burned brighter than any flame. The Forgeborn had survived. They had faced the Concord's mightiest assault and, though battered and bruised, stood unyielding. The war was far from over, but hope, fragile and fierce, was rekindled, rebuilding the flame. Reg Talon walked through the streets with purposeful strides. His armor bore the marks of battle, dents, scratches, and the faint glow of the ember strain pulsing beneath. Around him, soldiers and civilians alike toiled to repair the damage. "Reg," Mara called from a nearby forge, sparks flying as she welded a broken support beam. Her face was streaked with grime, but her eyes gleamed with determination. "We can rebuild," he said, voice steady. "We have to." Mara nodded. "The Firestorm unit is ready. The Ember enhancements from Call's serum are holding steady in the field." "Good," Reg replied. "We'll need every advantage for what comes next." Preparing for the final strike. Inside the war room, the core leadership gathered once again. Maps and holograms flickered with the latest intelligence. Saren Core pointed to a cluster of Concord bases deep within the wasteland. "This is their command nexus," she explained. "Destroying it would cripple their coordination." Call leaned forward. "It's heavily fortified, more than anything we've faced." Reg's gaze hardened. "Then we'll strike at the heart." Mara stood beside him. "Firestorm is ready for the mission. We have the technology and the strength. It's time to end this." The mission briefing. The Firestorm unit assembled in the command chamber. Each member wore armor augmented with the latest Ember strain enhancements, their eyes sharp with focus. Mara addressed them, her voice calm but fierce. "This is more than a battle. It's the future of humanity." She outlined the plan: a covert infiltration into the Concord Nexus, planning charges to bring the entire operation down. "The Concord won't expect an attack like this," she said. "We strike fast, strike hard, and leave no trace." The team nodded in unison, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. Into the abyss. Under cover of darkness, the Firestorm unit departed forward hold and stealth transports. The journey through the wasteland was tense. The landscape, scarred by war and environmental decay, seemed to close in around them. Call monitored ember strain levels in real time, adjusting the serums to keep the team at peak condition. Mara's mind was a storm of focus, every sense alert, every muscle ready. Breach and battle. Reaching the Concord Nexus, the Firestorm unit slipped past perimeter defenses using stealth technology derived from pirate core data. But the deeper they penetrated, the heavier the resistance became. Sentinels and automated turrets awaited them, relentless and brutal. Mara and her team moved like flames through shadow, fast, precise, deadly. Elsa's disruptors shattered enemy shields. Kara's marksmanship eliminated sentinels before they could react, and Kaal's enhancements gave them strength beyond normal limits. The heart of darkness. They reached the central command chamber, a vast, labyrinthine hub pulsing with energy. Here, the ember strain reactors that powered the Concord's war machine hummed ominously. Mara planted the charges as the team fought off waves of reinforcements. Sweat and blood mingled as seconds ticked by, every heartbeat a countdown. A final sacrifice. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Concord's commander appeared, a towering figure clad in experimental armor infused with anti-ember technology. "Fools," he snarled, "you cannot win." A fierce battle erupted. Mara faced him head-on, her flare blazing bright. The commander's armor absorbed much of the attack, but the ember strain surged within her, pushing her beyond limits. With a final, desperate strike, Mara shattered his defenses and brought him down. But the victory came at a cost. Kaal was critically wounded defending the team. Escape and victory. With the charges set, Mara gave the order to retreat. The Firestorm unit fled the crumbling nexus as the explosives detonated, a massive explosion shaking the wasteland. The Concord's command network collapsed. Their forces fell into disarray. Back in Forehold, the news was met with jubilant relief. Reg addressed the people. "Today we have struck a blow not just against the Concord, but against oppression itself. A new dawn." Though the war was far from over, the Forgeborn now held the advantage. The ember strain, once a curse, had become a symbol of humanity's indomitable will. Mara stood beside Reg, looking out over the rising sun. "We have risen from the ashes," she said softly. Reg smiled. Like a phoenix, the fire within them burned brighter than ever. The Forgeborn would carry that flame into the future, whatever it held.